Hey there friends, welcome to another demo on Tableau. I'm going to show you really quickly how you can create a line chart in Tableau. There are two different things when it comes to line chart. The line chart that involves categorical data and line chart that involves continuous data. So categorical variables or data line chart is when you have a discrete or dimension variable, in which case it could be one of the variables from this drop down list whose color is again blue. That's one of the ways that you can know your variable is a dimension variable, and one variable from the measures list. So if we were to produce a line chart using SAP category of items and their sales, pretty much we can bring both of these onto the shelf for columns and rows, and then we have a bar graph. So we can easily transition from a bar graph into a line chart by simply going to the marks card drop down and selecting line. And there you go. Now we have a line chart that mimics the bar graph. And remember that on a bar graph, each of the bar represents an aggregation of the measure, in which case it's the sum of sales. Like let's say if we were to bring the sales onto the label to look at the actual value of each of the bars here, as you can see, when we change this to a line graph, a line chart, we get to maintain the same data point visualization, except that now it's represented in the form of a line, as you can see here. And each of these data points actually represents a bar. And instead of having bars to show categorically the aggregated sum of sales for each of these categories, we have a line chart doing the job. So that's one of the ways that you can create a line chart for a categorical, remember categorical or dimension variable versus measure variable. Now, another way, another applicability or application of a line chart is using the date versus measure variable, and this is the most common use of line chart. They're also called time series trend chart or time series line chart or time series continuous line chart, however you would like to name it, but it has more applicability and use than a simple categorical line chart. So to produce that, as you can see on these three or those line charts that I'm talking about. So to produce that, you need to have at least one dimension of date and then and a measure. So in which case, let's say we bring the ship date, which is a date variable, onto a column, and then we bring the sales to the rows. And there you go. Now we have a line chart that is plotted on the x-axis whose data type is date data. And it shows us a trend of how these data points grew and then grew and mounted down over time. So it went from 2015 growing exponentially and then going down exponentially. So but now you should ask yourself, why do we have this variable on column shelf in the blue color? Well, because again, a date variable is a dimension variable, but it can also be changed to a continuous variable, which means that by changing the date type to a secondary measurement of continuous type, we can actually allow additional detail drill down or additional exploration in terms of continuous exploration. So if we were to, right now, as you can see, the date is 2015, ranging from 2015 to 2019. And if we were to change this to month, we simply click on the plus sign here. It first gives us the quarter, and this is where the discreteness comes to play. It's discrete, it's dimension, because as you can see, these lines are not attached. It's not continuous. So as the quarter ends, the line ends, and the next line starts when the next quarter starts. That's how you know that your variable is actually dimension. It It's categorical rather than continuous. And as you can see, we have all of these time series plotted in categories of quarters on years, going down all the way till the end year. Now, we can actually play with this. Let's say if you want to get rid of the quarter, you can simply just remove that drill down and then leave the month there. But again, it will not change anything. Why? Because it's still it's still assigned a discrete data, secondary data type, or a discrete measurement, or a dimension measurement. So when you have discrete measurement, as you can see in here, this is the box for discrete measurement. And you can also see the discrete button is on while this visualization is on. And the year is on or checked for this visualization because we are using this discrete type of visualization. And now if you were to change this to year in a continuous in a continuous format, we can simply do that by clicking on the date variable and then selecting one of the date format drill down from here. Or we can also simply click change it to continuous here, and all of a sudden, as you can see, our year variable changed to continuous variable type. And now we have our years expanded from a discrete format more in a continuous format. And you can do additional drill down, or you can do additional breakdown of these years into additional months or quarters or weekly formats. And you can simply do that by going to the customs and changing them here. And as you can see, now we have the month and the year. Or let's say you would like to change it to uh, quarters. And you can see the number of quarters from here, going from 0 to 5. Or you can move back to discrete, as you saw, and move and change it to monthly. But the problem is when you have the discrete format, again, when you break it down, when you collapse the month, again, you would see that these charts will not connect. They are broken here. Again, why? Because we are looking at a discrete version of our date variable. And again, to change that, we can simply click on continuous, and there you go. You see that all these lines are actually connected to each other. And if you wanted to drill down to further, as you can see, now we change it to years, to weeks, or we can change it to days. So again, remember that when you're plotting date variable, make sure that you are making use of both the discrete formatting and the continuous formatting, and they both have their own exact uses when it comes to visualization. And remember that the more bar here actually provides you additional ways to format or bring your to format and change your date type on the actual visualization. Let's say if you only want to look at the years, and here you go, only look at the years. Let's say if you like to only look at months, which we already used, let's say week numbers. And not only you can see them by week numbers, but you can also see that there's no detachment between the lines going from while they're transitioning from one week to another week. Everything is continuous. So sometimes you may need to use continuous formatting. Sometimes you may need to use discrete formatting. It all depends on what you're trying to achieve. So something else about the line chart that you need to understand, especially when you're plotting a line chart on a time series on a time series basis, is the analytics feature here. I'm going to have a separate video where I'll explain each of these summaries and models and customizations of the lines. But for today's demo, I just would like to show you what this forecast does. And so what that forecast does is it produces a forecast of that line depend on the basis of historical data. So again, if we were to look at the profits over time, and let's say if we were to look at the changes to continuous, and so let's say 2019, and we'd like to see what the 2020 and 21 look like. So we simply drag the forecast feature here onto the chart, and then this should allow us to look at what the forecast looks like. And let's just change that attribute here so that we can connect these lines, and there you go. We now have, and let me also bring the labeling of the profits here, and now uh, we can see that there is a linear growth, a linear positive growth in the line, and our forecast shows that this growth will continue to moving into 2020 and 2021, uh, going to 111,000 and then 126,000. So this is one of the ways that you can actually do a basic forecast of your distribution using historical information. But I'll have again a separate video where I'll explain each of these models, especially with the confidence intervals. You need to understand what this is from a statistical point of view and how you can actually construct a confidence interval around an average or mean of a distribution. And they're a little bit complex. They will be explained in the context of forecast and predictive analytics. This is it for this video, and thank you for your time.